Volunteer, give back, go on a service trip, make a difference. These are phrases or reminders that have become engraved in my mind. I hear things like this from my family, friends, and advisors. People say these things for an obvious reason. Giving back and volunteering are great things. I have had the opportunity to grow up in an environment that allowed me to give back to the community around me. From tutoring kids at my local elementary school to traveling globally to provide resources for local families, I am very proud of my work. And I tell you this because throughout all of my work, I had a realization, and it led me to the question, how do people approach compassion? I thought of this question a few years ago when I had the opportunity to visit San Juan, Zacatepec, Guatemala on a crowd-funded service trip. We were there to help provide resources for local community members and care for the children at the clinic where I was staying. I had been on service trips before that point, but nothing as intense as what I faced there. I found myself situated in a rural malnutrition clinic in a small town in Guatemala, encountering stark realities. It was a humbling and eye-opening encounter with the struggles that many people around the world endure daily, and it motivated me to contribute to positive change in any way I could. The most important part of the trip for me was when I met a 5-year-old girl named Maria. She was staying at the clinic, specifically in an area for severely malnourished children. And an amazing thing happened. We began to form a relationship. We became friends. When approaching relationships with these children in general, I attempted to find common ground, despite our vast differences. Days continued to roll by, and Maria and I continued to become closer. I saw that she didn't have all the resources she needed, and I wanted to help. While this desire isn't bad by any means, the root of my desire was. I was approaching my empathy through a healer helps wounded mindset. Subconsciously, most of us do exactly what I was doing. We feel guilt or remorse for the wounded and know we have the resources, making us the healer. I realized this approach was entirely incorrect, and I began to form a new idea. By acknowledging my differences with someone, in me and Maria's case, it may have been our origin, language, or age, and then putting those differences aside, which isn't easy, we were able to connect, despite our vast differences, in the short time we had together. Take a moment to think about what compassion is. According to the Oxford Dictionary, compassion is the following: sympathetic pity and concern for the sufferings or misfortunes of others. Most of us would agree with this definition, and while it's surely accurate, compassion carries a lot more weight. To me, compassion is a fundamental human quality, yet it often remains constrained by societal norms, biases, and self-imposed limitations. When reapproaching compassion, it's first important to look at society as a whole today. What are people's intentions? To answer this question, psychologist Paul Gilbert found that many aspects of modern society tap into and stimulate our threat-sensitive, competitive, and self-focused impulses, essentially saying that people are more likely to be driven by greed and jealousy. This general wavelength of thinking has found its way to sneak into compassion as a whole, even though we may not always see it. Despite compassion's intrinsic nature, it may be hindered by societal norms, biases, and personal barriers, reflecting the complex interplay between our inherent empathy and the influences that shape our interactions with others. Despite the fact that I may have wanted to connect with Maria, and eventually did, our language barrier could have stood between us, completely hindering our ability to connect at a level that could produce actual progress within each other's lives. How can you truly connect with someone without knowing their language? Constraints like this stand in the way of genuine compassion, so my suggestion to you is to put them aside. Sounds simple, right? Not necessarily. It is very important to first acknowledge these differences. To approach the kind of compassion I'm explaining does not encompass a disregard for different customs and beliefs that different cultural identities hold. rather acknowledges and appreciates them. But once these constraints are set to the side, we connect at a level where it's human to human, person to person. By breaking down the constraints of prejudice, fear, and division, we can see that we're all just human, and every action we have can make an impact, even if it feels small. Compassion can be a bridge that closes gaps between cultures, races, and beliefs, extending beyond our immediate circumstances and self-interest. If we use these negatively defining characteristics as a strong role in compassion, it is next to impossible to close that bridge and form meaningful change. Psychologist Brené Brown says, compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. While this sounds great, in my situation with Maria, what was I supposed to do? How could I just put aside a language barrier? Was that even possible? To my surprise, it was. Compassion is a powerful force that transcends language and any other barrier you throw at it. What I mean is that despite me and Maria's vastly different situations, we were able to connect. We shared laughs and hugs despite not being able to communicate in words. She appreciated me, and I definitely appreciated her. Compassion at its core is an acknowledgement of a shared humanity. All humans share laughs and hugs, despite not sharing the same language. You can start reshaping your idea of compassion right here, in this community. This affects all of us. When approaching compassion, the first and most important thing you need to know is that it does not start with huge actions. It's built on the little things. Has a person in front of you in a drive-thru ever paid for you? A random person held the door open for you? Or a stranger giving you a compliment? These are small examples of a huge concept. Did the person in front of you in the drive-thru know your first language, origin, or the color of your skin? No. Those factors were not working in their decision to make your day a little happier. What will these acts of compassion even add up to? I mean, it feels nice in the moment, but what's the point? I have news for you. Compassion does not just stop with small actions. It's a domino effect that inspires collective action and positive change within communities. A study in 2010 titled Cooperative Behavior Cascades in Human Social Networks by James Flower analyzed data from the Farringham Heart Study to explore the spread of cooperative behavior in human social networks. He found that cooperative behavior, including acts of kindness and compassion, created a positive ripple effect in social networks. When one person engaged in pro-social behavior, it influenced others in their social network to do the same. Essentially, when someone sees you contributing positively to society, it ignites a drive in them to make their own contribution. Just by the simple act of showing compassion, you are creating a large domino effect in society. With all of this said, I encourage each and every one of you to reflect on your own biases you have when approaching compassion and not use the healer helps wounded mindset. When you break free from these constraints and embrace a more expansive, unbound form of love, you will see your compassion transcending barriers and uplifting individuals and communities. Thank you.